All right. So you guys have basically seen the zones. You know the zones. You know we're talking about all these fucking rectangles. You're probably all wondering what is up with the zones, right? So I assume you've all watched Jay Bart's video on how to find them. You know, it's pretty self-explanatory. This is the 4 hour chart right now. So you would be looking for the red boxes. So anything where there is like any kind of major change in movement. So like here, there's a major change going down. Here, this was a huge gap up. This is a major change here, etc. Right? This one's from here's let's find another one. Let's go back quite a ways. Here's a couple more examples, right? So there's one here, it's a big top. Same thing here. There probably could be another one here that would coincide with this one. One here, one here. You guys get the gist, right? It's like any major top or bottom on the 4 hour chart that just stands out. You can kind of go ahead and mark it as a box. So a lot of these, this dates back to fucking May of last year. So these go back in like, obviously this one's in the 18,000s, so this one's not relevant today, but this one is. So this one is from July 11th, and this is in 2490 area. And today, I believe we traded around there. Maybe we didn't get that high or that low, I mean. Oh, hold on, I'm writing. So 2490, I believe I just said. Yeah, so that one was played off in the last several days. So that's this one right here. So they have multiple uses. Obviously, you guys know what they're used for. I personally, these 4 hour ones are great, but what I found is a lot more useful is the 1 hours, which looks crazy like this. I know it looks like there's a ton of them, but it's the same thing. When you go back in time, you can kind of just see major top here, major top here. Let's find another one. Major bottom here. This one is already kind of enveloped by the 4 hours, so you wouldn't draw one here. Same thing here, right? Major top, major top, major top. It's almost like stair steps. The actual zones themselves, they're usually like 908 to 875, usually about 20, 30 points. I'm trying to keep them any taller than that because once they get too big, I can probably find a like this one right here. This box, the purple one, I would say is probably too large because if we're actively in this zone, remember these are hourly candles, but if you're in this zone for 6 to 7 hours, you're going to be completely full of indecision. So this is like not a good example.
Yeah.
You don't want one that's this big. You want to probably try and go back. I can find where this one starts. Let's see. Yeah, so you can see this is way too big, and it might not even be in the right spot. You can realistically pull it down to something like that, and then nothing will change in the long scheme of things. You're still coming up with the test here. You got the test here. Bounce, bounce. You know, the same concept exists. And like when you guys are watching this play out, it's important to notice that like just because this doesn't actually touch the line here doesn't mean, oh man, it didn't retest the zone. Like you guys see how much wiggle room there is here with these zones. Like you could very easily have drawn the zone up to here and been like, oh, I got a touch. So like if you see a rejection along a line like this where there's been a ton of shit, a ton of chop, a ton of reaction, if you will, you know, like you should kind of expect something like that. You're more looking for the moves that are not in that area, you know, something that's far away. This is the kind of shit where you kind of don't really want to get in because you'll get trapped. You really want to try and I'm getting ahead of myself. What you really want to do is you want to play these zones from one zone to another, right? You want to go from this one to this one. You want to wait for the eventual move back up and then it rejects. You want to play it down. That's what I've been doing a lot more lately. I'm going to get to that in a moment, but I just wanted to kind of explain where they come from, how they're drawn, um, kind of quick and dirty, you know, because there's a whole video on that. I'm not gonna be too redundant. I know we've got the time limit on Zoom. So before I go any further on the actual using them for like trades up and down and movement and whatnot, does all of that make sense? Does anyone have any questions?
Yes. So my question is, like, I know these zones are very subjective and like you kind of touch base on it. Like, are you drawing yours from wick to the body of the candle? Like, how are you exactly doing yours?
Let me find one and I can tell you. So this most recent one, it's kind of just like a top. I'm not really particular about it. You know, I'm not doing like the rake trades thing where I'm trying to make it exactly at the top of the body or anything like that. That's not really
Hmm.
the goal. And I even thought about it at a certain point, you know, I was like, I wonder if there's some smarter way to do this. I wonder if we should just draw like a horizontal line and then like just taper it 10 points on either side, so it would be 10 points this way, 10 points that way. But like that's just it's kind of like you said, it's subjective. And the whole idea is not to like have this be a bulletproof method, but it's more of, and Joe knows what I'm talking about because he looks at book map. It's more of like a quick and dirty way to visualize where the big orders sit. And historically, a lot of these don't move, right? Like this one you can see is from January 31st. So this is from this one to this one is 8 days apart. So the same order set is sitting here at 8 days apart. They completely just rejected off of this. And granted, this is pretty high, but it's not all-time highs. There's 3 hour, 4 hour zones up above it that we've been to previously, even if it was before the contract rollover. So like it's not I can't really answer the question one way or another because like here's another one where it's not on the like if it was just like the other one, this would be more up here. But it's subjective,
Hmm.
right? It's more just about the fact that there was a rejection here and it did not go any higher. And then while you're drawing it, you also want to look, and I left this part out and you just reminded me, while you're drawing it, you want to kind of look to the right and see if there's other significant touches with it. So like here, you can see that it kind of bounced here, bounced here. So that's good. This one doesn't really count because it closed right through it. But here again, bounced through it, didn't really count. So you get what I'm saying. Another bottom here, another bottom here. So this one would be considered fairly significant because it's got several touches. And that's one of the things J-Bar says is when you're drawing these zones, you want at least two touches. So this one right here is probably less relevant, but he would probably come back and say, well, you could put it all the way back to here and route it back to where this resistance was. So again, back to the subjectivity of it, we could talk about this shit all day. We could draw them all differently all day long. I think the rough core idea is that you have like a rough idea of where they are, so that when you're on a much smaller time frame and you're trading something like today, even if this isn't right, even if this box should be here and it should be 20, 30 points lower, it still gives you a visual aid of I know there might be a bounce here. Or if something like this happens today, where you're going down and you're thinking, shit, are we just going to keep going down or what are we going to do here? This gives you kind of a clear visual indicator of no, we're breaking back out of this zone. And that's why this trade is drawn here. I didn't take this trade. I didn't take any trades today because my fucking internet. Um, but that's kind of the idea behind it. And I'm about to go into that in further detail. But does that kind of answer your question a little bit, Westy?
Yeah, 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 it does.
Anybody else got any questions before I get any deeper into this?
Yeah, I'm good.
And so what I've kind of been doing, Scott, is it's not really a question, but more of a, I haven't been going as far back as like May or whatever of last year. I've just kind of been like looking in the immediate area,
Yep.
and I can easily spot the tops and like the bottoms. Um, yeah, just like kind of in the middle is where I find more trouble. Does that make sense?
No, it does. What time
Yeah.
frame are you doing them on?
I'm gonna do them on the hourly now because I mean I know Yuchi's having success. That's where you're saying you're plotting yours. So I'll just put them on the hourly.
Yeah, I mean, they're essentially like an evolved, the way I like to think about it anyway. It's almost like an evolved mastermind level, right? Because like it's the same thing almost to a sense. Like you're looking for tops and you're looking for bottoms, you're looking for highs and you're looking for lows. You don't cancel them, like you probably could go back and you could try to invalidate some of these, but like again, that one from June just hit a few days ago. So it's like who's to know what's going to ever become invalidated? But beyond that, it's like the problem with the levels, and we've all been there, is you set your target at the level and the price action gets within like 3 or 4 points of the level and then it rejects and you're like son
Hmm.
of a bitch and then it like nosedive candles the other direction and you're like stressed trying to close the trades, lose your old position. you know that's like the shitty thing about levels is like they're exact and they're like almost too exact, whereas with a zone you have a little bit more like flexibility with what you're going to target. You could target the bottom of the zone, you could target the middle of it, you could target the top. you know to answer your question though, Joe, more about like what happens in the middle of it. Theoretically, you want to kind of avoid the middle of it. You want to go from zone to zone. Like you want to not get caught up in this. You want to not get trapped up in this. You want to try and get basically the breakouts of each zone. That's the rough idea. That's what J Bart has explained to me basically, especially when it comes to the opening print right here. So like I don't know if he traded this morning, but I guarantee you if he did, he probably took this trade because of this zone right here, and his zone is probably a little lower because he's a lot more accurate at it than I am. But basically, it's the same thing, right? We had this huge news nosedive candle, and then like it's basically just a failure to go lower because we didn't really break. I think we went down. What is this? 514 versus. Yeah, 4 points. So it went 4 points lower. That is not a failure. That's not a real break lower, right? It's like it's just
Right.
it's like a betting game at a certain point with the opening print. That's why I don't like to do it. But that's how J-Bart almost exclusively trades. He will look for things like this. He'll also look for things like this, which I can point out right now, which I hadn't even seen until right now that I'm looking at it. And actually, that doesn't count. That's not a fair value gap. But let's pretend that this was a fair value gap and this wasn't a huge wick right here. He would also be looking for this. So he would probably take his long actually here, right above the fair
Right.
value gaps, and then he would hold it up to the next zone or wherever it might be. And that's how he likes to trade. Um, and you guys know me, like I'm all about learning how other people trade and learning other techniques and shit like that because I'm a true core believer of we can never know enough stuff about this. And there's always gonna be different viewpoints of looking at trades and different ways of looking at charts and whatnot. Some people look at charts with literally nothing on it, and they can trade this perfectly fine, but I'm not one of those people. So the more visual aid, the better. So to your point, Joe, and back to your question and kind of answering it with visuals. What you're looking for, and I already mentioned it, is like really the breakouts of the boxes. And it's kind of funny because I'm going to show you this with no indicators on, and then I'm going to show you this with the indicator on. And I don't think anybody in here is not on the indicator, but I swear this isn't an ad with the indicator. This is just pure dumb luck. So like we're looking, I get the one got deleted from this morning. Let me re-add that. All right. So realistically, the crazy opening print move, we already talked about that one. That one's kind of a risky biscuit. Um, this is kind of the same shit, like you could treat the fib levels kind of as a zone, and there's basically a few people that I know that trade like this. They don't do it on the 30-second chart, but if you looked at this right here on the 30-second chart, it would be a much more smooth bounce right here. And here, fuck it, I'll just show it to you. And I'm not showing this to you guys trade the 30-second chart. Don't have that be the takeaway here. I'm just showing it for visual reference. So 10 a.m. Here it is. This is what we were just looking at on the 2 minute. So you can see if you're imagining this as a zone, this is another exact perfect failure to go lower. And you could also take a trade here based off of the levels anywhere in here. Not really the point though. I'm just showing you that, guys, that showing you this one though, guys, so you can see it basically back to the subjectivity of it all. You could not even draw these hourly zones and you could do everything that I'm explaining right now purely from these field levels. You could spot a rejection here. You could take a short going down. You could spot a rejection here, taking the long going up. So my point being is that if you use fib level, oops, if you use fib levels, if you use a zone, whatever you use, these support and resistance is so fucking important to understand. Like it is probably, I used to think that general market trend was the biggest missing piece from the whole mastermind class, if you will, but I'm starting to think this one might be bigger because you guys see it, right? Like I could hide the candles. Hold on, let me hide them and show it to you literally. So without the candles even being there, you can see just from these trades that are drawn, where is the box? We went from this box to this box, from this box to this box, this box to this box, this box to this box, this box to this box. This one's more of a subjective end of the day trade. But you get the drift, right? It's from one zone to another or from the bottom of one zone to the top of another one. And you're not just going to take these willy-nilly. It's not like, oh, we're in the zone. You don't want to just take the trades stupidly. That's not the point here. But what you're looking for is, like I was just saying, either the continuation of the trend or I'm going to delete this one, the rejection. So rejected the bottom here, making a move back up. Didn't really go higher, but this is the retest. So this is why this is a smaller move. And this one, truthfully, I drew up after the fact. So, I don't know if you guys would be holding for a higher move here and would not get it, and then would eventually come back down to getting stopped out, whatever it might be. I'm not trying to flooze you guys here, like I'm being realistic with this. I drew these today, looking at the chart after the day was over. So like these are all subjective as well. The whole idea behind it is that you can use the bounce of each zone to kind of use them for breakouts, if that makes sense. So before I show you that with the indicator, Joe, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyone else? Questions? All right, moving on. So you guys see these five trades. I thought there was six. I guess there's five. I might have deleted one. Oh, here's the sixth one. So there's a sixth trade too. So this one's a perfect example too, breaking out of the box. And this is at the end of the day, so it's kind of not as clean. But if we pretend that the market didn't close and reopen right here, eventually would have gone up to the next zone as well, where you can see we're still bouncing right now. That being said, turning the indicator on, you can see that in almost every one of these scenarios, give it a moment to load. There's basically, so this one does not count because this is the opening print move that we're not taking, right? That's not the goal here. There's two moves that I've talked about in the FF server. Basically, the first one being using the trigger line for an entry. This one's pretty self-explanatory. It's green. You get in at this trigger line right above the breakout of this zone. You could take the trade to here. You could take it to here. You could take it to here. If you really wanted to be bold and hold it for a while, you could take it up to here. You know, it all depends on your risk tolerance and what you're looking for. But the point being, you guys see it, right? There's three reasons really why you would take this entry with the indicator. Number one, actually four reasons. Shit. Let's get really specific. Number one is this big ass green cloud behind the bars. So that's looking good. Number two, we're breaking above the blue trigger line, which is also great. Number three, we're breaking above this major trend line, which is this red one and green one that goes back and forth. And then I forgot. Oh, the number four one is that the candles are green. So you break above this fill level here. Realistically, if you were wanted to be more patient, you could take the trade up here. If you want to get above this fill level, that's fine. Again, everybody's trading differently here. I'm not trying to instruct you guys on how to trade. This is more just my insights. So you would take this trade here, break of the trigger level, break of the fib level up here. That one's pretty clean. The second thing that I like to teach is once you're kind of past this fib or once you're past this trigger line and you're looking for another entry, that you can use. Let me make it larger so you can see it easier. You can use the major trend line, the one that goes from green to red, and wait for a nice clean break above it. And then this one also coincides with the top of this hourly zone. So you break the trade out here. You could again take it to here, get a nice quick W. You could take it to here. If you really wanted to hold it longer, you could not even take this entry and you could actually, this would stop you out. So see, if you held this longer, if you try and get too bold and you're like, I'm gonna hold this motherfucker, you're gonna get stopped out over here. That's why I don't like to do that. I like to typically go one zone, maybe two at the absolute most, but it's kind of 70 points is a lot of moves. You know, you realistically could have held this for 90 something, depending on where you wanted to close. That's a hell of a trade to me. Anything over 50 points is typically what I aim for. I typically aim for 50 at the max, so just so you guys know. So these would all be realistically this this big ass trade. If I had taken it, I realistically would have closed it here because I'm not trying to be, for better lack of a word, I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm not trying to catch 600 points a day. That's not my goal. Um, my goal is to be realistic. So that way, when I hit these 50 points, I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it again. Whereas if I hit a 250 point move, which might happen every once in a while, you know, if this opening print move here it held all the way through, and actually it might be 250, 270 points. So let's say you hold this thing and you hit 267 points. What are your mental expectations on the next trade? Oh man, I'm gonna hit another 100, 150 points, 200 points. No, you're fucking not. And you're gonna get wrecked. And I've been there, I've done that. I'm speaking from experience, trust me. Like, so that's why I don't like to do this. Like, I know it's kick ass to say, oh man, I caught 100 points, I caught 150 points, 200 points, whatever it might be, but it's not sustainable. That's probably a better way to phrase it.
Right.
Whereas when you take these little stabs and you take this 50 point stab here and it runs another 80 points, oh fucking well. You caught your 50 points. That's $1,000, guys. Like with one NQ contract. Like that's a lot of money. Like we're talking about serious coin here. So this shit adds up. There's five of these throughout the day. Well, four of them that are 50 pointers. Actually, no, there's a fifth one. Where did it go? It keeps deleting. I had six trades here, but it deleted one of them. But five out of the six were 50 point trades is the idea. It was right here. This is where it was. Somewhere along here. You get
Yeah,
the drift.
that's right.
So, I mean, like that's my point, right? Is like I try to be as reasonable as possible with my expectations and with my daily trading for multiple reasons. One, these moves happen all the time. And maybe not 50 points, maybe not 69 points. These are all a little exaggerated because we're living in Trump's economy now. But if this was like a more subdued market, you know, these would probably look a little bit more like this. And you might be looking at 15, 20, 30 points for each one of these moves. And that's great too. You know, like it's all, you gotta temper your expectations with whatever the market's doing. So like honestly, truthfully, coming in today, and one of the reasons why I wasn't even jived to trade today, even before my internet started fucking up, was this shit. You guys know that I hate these big moves down
Right.
pre-market or overnight because it just sets up for a big trap. And today, truthfully, wasn't that. Today was like relatively a clean trend to just bounce between each zone. But most of the time, we'll stay in between this zone right here, and we'll be in this zone all freaking day. Or we'll be in the middle right here. To your point, Joe, we won't even be in an hourly zone. We'll just be in the middle of two of them, and we'll chop for
Yeah.
80 points all freaking day. That's typically what happens. Today was an anomaly because all this tariff bullshit, and I think it's going to be like this for a little bit. So all I can say is be ready, try and map these out. I can give you my chart if you guys want to load these exact zones. No pressure. Like if you want to draw them yourself, I'm happy to look at them. I know J Bart's happy to look at them too. My main point of advice is just try and be patient with your entries. Try and make sense of them and make make as much logic out of each entry as you possibly can, right? Like so as I was explaining all these to you, there's multiple reasons why I could tell you why I would have taken these trades. Whether it's the indicator or whether it's not, right? Whether it's just a simple breakout of this zone because you held the bottom here. That's an entry reason too. But I want you to be able to like consciously think about your trades while you're taking them, before you take them, during the entry, after you've taken it. Was that a good entry? How should I trail my stop? Things like that. So I hope that all makes sense. Anyway, any questions?
At me next time. Just
Yeah,
fucking me. No, I feel you. Yeah, I feel like I've been looking for like all the technical things to line up and not been like trading like again with the narrative or with the I feel like I'm just missing the trend sometimes just because I'm like forcing things.
and it's easy to do. Easy to do, trust me. One thing since I've got a few minutes left, I'll go over, give it a sec,
Doing a
sorry.
practice trade on gold right now. It's working out pretty well.
What's gold looking
Um,
like right now? Oh yeah.
it's trending higher. Got in on the when the candles turn green.
And I've not drawn these zones up on gold. I thought I drew a couple of them.
Kind of going through a zone right now on gold. It's pretty obvious on the 1 hour chart, but it looks like it got through it, so we might be in the clear now. Too bad it's not the live account.
Yeah, that
It's
is
okay
clean,
though.
actually. I see that. So you guys see this now. So we're on gold, looking at gold now, and it's a clean chart. So this is the hourly chart. So there's kind of a
It's
little
trying to break through
confusion.
the zone. Yeah, I did a little bit skinnier of a zone, but yeah,
Yeah, I see what you're talking about. Something like that. And then same thing, moving it back further, lower down. So when you're kind of, this one's a little bit trickier. I don't know
oh, is
where
it
you want.
rejecting now? Fuck.
So here's a better example of this one further down of why you might draw them a little wider. Again, you're looking for the multiple touches. So you would start this one here. There's a touch here. There's a touch here. There's a touch here. Kind of move through it
Scott,
here.
you cut out.
Can you hear me? Oh,
Scott, you cut out there, bud.
it's
I
probably
think
my
his
internet.
internet crashed.
Yeah, it's probably my internet.
Oh my God.
I can still hear you guys.